want you guys to think right now, what's the cheapest used car you can buy that's actually fast, whether it's fast out of the box or you can make it fast reliably and with very little effort. The first car that comes to my mind is BMW's 335 with the twin turbo engine. Since they made like 1 billion of them, they're all over marketplace, and since most of those are super clapped out, it makes them really cheap. And with just a tune, you can get them over 400 horsepower. Heck, you can really crank the boost up, but that ends up requiring a lot more effort, and then you lose the reliability. The only other truly cheap alternative I can think of is a really well-used Coyote Mustang with like nearly 200,000 miles on them. The engine is notoriously reliable, but if you want any more than the 400 horsepower it came with, well, it's no longer going to be cheap. But overlooked by almost everyone is this supercharged V8. It comes from the factory with nearly 500 horsepower, and even better than that is that it's moddable, it's tunable, so there's more power left on the table for us to play with. Pound for pound, this car has to be the fastest and maybe even the nicest car you can get for the money. The Jaguar XF Supercharged was the top trim XF you could buy before getting into the specialty performance models like the XFR. And while the XFR is still relatively pricey, this car is basically the same exact thing minus a few badges and just a few horsepower. But the engine itself, it's the same. Every piece of hardware is identical, so it's all in the tune. And because of that, we can get this Jag well over 500 horsepower under $5,000. So far, we've spent $4,100 on the car. That was from an auction with all the fees included. When I got it, it was obvious that there was something wrong with the front suspension. The car was slammed to the ground and it rode pretty rough. And after jacking the car up, our culprit were these generic aftermarket struts. They just weren't the right fit for this car. So we found a local pick-apart yard that had a similar Jag. We went and grabbed both front electronic dampers, and it cost us just $80. These were an amazing deal, and they ended up restoring our ride height and quality. Now, while we were at the junkyard, I questioned whether or not I should have picked up this set of wheels to replace the cheesy-looking aftermarket ones that came on our car. But after finding out that the entire set would have cost around $500, I passed so that we could stay within our $5,000 goal. But you guys definitely had something to say about this. Nearly every comment from our last video is how much of a tightwad I am that I wasn't willing to spend the $500 to get this factory set of rims for our Jag. Several of you even mentioned the idea to sell the wheels that are currently on the car to help recoup some of our costs and stay within this budget. And while this is a great idea in theory, to these people I have to ask, have you ever tried selling a used set of wheels? And if you haven't, is there any chance you'd be interested in a used set of wheels? I've been through this same ordeal so many times before, and I have the spare wheels to prove it. You don't want to just look for a good deal. You want to look for a deal that makes a difference, whether that be on your project or on your wallet. One that makes a real impact, like what Mint Mobile is offering with 3 months of their premium unlimited wireless service at just $15 a month. Wheels only fit specific cars because all of their different dimensions. They're limited by their design, but Mint Mobile covers 98% of Americans with 5G and 99% with 4G LTE, so it basically fits everyone. And changing wheels takes tools, a jack, and usually a wheel key that didn't end up coming with the car, but switching to Mint only takes minutes with eSIM and can be done all from your home. And while I wish I could tell you I got some sort of bulk discount on all these wheels, in this case bulk just means more clutter, but with Mint, the more months you buy up front, the more you save. Trust me, it's not that hard to find a good deal on a used set of wheels, but when it comes to a great deal on an amazing wireless service, you gotta check out Mint Mobile at that link in the description box, because this deal is only good until September 22nd. That's 3 months of unlimited wireless service for just $15 a month. Mint has an exceptional reputation, as 96% of their users cite that they are highly satisfied with their customer service, and you're going to start experiencing the savings the first day you sign up over at that link in the description box with Mint Mobile. Besides the suspension repairs, the only other obvious issues that I noticed when we got this car was a massive crack in the windshield, which I opted to have professionally replaced for $300. Also, the push to start button has collapsed, which seems like a common issue with these cars, since the one at the pick-apart yard had this same exact problem. For this, I just took a couple measurements and 3D printed a cylinder to fit in the hole, which probably cost us a whole 5 cents in filament. But before we turn up the boost and go fast, I noticed that when I was working on the suspension that there were a few drips of oil coming from underneath this Jag, which we got to see if we can't stop, because we don't want to be running this car hard if we know it's constantly low on oil. Oh man, well, we found a leak. There's some sort of oil leak going on. The front of the pan is just caked in oil. When you see this, On a European car, you always are like, hey, it's probably got an upper oil pan issue. But when we go to the sides and look, it's relatively clean. Same thing over on this side, look. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not just leaking from one side of the upper pan, but in this case, seeing that it's all like concentrated in the front here, I'm betting you it's the lower pan which makes our lives a lot easier. I think they call for an engine out on this car. To remove that upper pan, you could probably jack up the engine and all that. We're not going to do that today. But what I would want to do here, just to get things better, is to take that sensor out, take this lower oil pan out, which looks like we'll be able to get to it all around. Let's just check in the cross brace back here. Yeah, we'll be able to get this lower pan out right here, and we can reseal that and reseal the sensor, and hopefully that makes this a lot better, if not kills our leak completely. Now we could just drain the oil right out of there. But one of the best things about these Jags, and something that makes them a more DIY friendly platform than people think, is this trick right here. When we take our oil cap off, there's a little metal straw sticking out right there. It's because when you get an oil change at the Jag dealer, they don't drop the oil from the bottom. They actually extract it out of that tube. And since the oil filter is located at the top part of the engine here, well, swapping that out, changing this oil can be done literally in minutes, and it's the cleanest oil change you'll ever do as long as you have one of those extraction pumps. So to set this up, we're gonna start with this little piece of scrap tubing here. It's the perfect size to slip over the tube that's in the actual engine itself. Then I'll just take my pump tube and slide it in here. Here's the flow direction of the pump, so we'll just run this tube right here down to our waste oil container. Now the only last thing we need to run the siphon pump is some power, and for whatever reason, this is one of very few cars that I've worked on that does not have jumper terminals in the front end of the car. Usually there's a post where you can hook up that positive and negative terminal. It just doesn't exist on the Jaguar XF. Usually around the garage there would be a spare battery around. I don't have one right now, but there is a spare car around, and we're gonna have to use this Supercharged V10 generator in order to run our siphon pump. Fits perfectly. We're all hooked up. All we have to do is make sure we're tight here. We're going to hit the on button. I think the Supercharged generator is actually quieter than the siphon pump here. All right, we're getting to the end here. You can see there's hardly any more oil coming out. The pump starts to get a little louder. So we'll just give it one final twist to make sure we got everything. And let's shut her down. If everything was perfect here, we'd be back up top refilling with oil. But since we want to solve our oil leak, we're going to actually drop this drain plug now, and this will also just show us how much oil remains in the sump when you do a extraction. Oh wow. All right, I know what you're thinking. That was a very elaborate setup to show off my new project car, and well, maybe it was, so make sure you're subscribed. That way when we start tearing into this V10 Supercharged generator, you're the first to find out. But also, if you've ever worked on these Jags or Range Rovers, you know that they have very large oil capacities with very small oil pans, and when you let loose that drain bolt, if you don't vacuum that oil out first, it makes a huge mess. Here's some proof from one of my old Range Rovers that I tried to do a traditional oil change on, and well, it didn't turn out good. Oh no, that shot real far. Come on, Range Rover, that was so rude. Look, it's shooting. Aw, man. So here's that lower oil pan. The residual oil left in it actually looks pretty nice. It's clean. I don't see any big fragments of anything. Those little dots there, those are just pieces of the RTV that fell in when we were taking it off. See all that buildup around the edge there? I'm betting you that this seal for the oil level sensor is one of our failure points here. Now when you go and you first look this up, they want to try and sell you a whole new sensor. This thing is like over $100. But if you dig deep enough, you can find the replacement seal for this part. Yeah, this feels really brittle and stuck in there. The new one, it just feels nice, springy, and soft. We've got that oil pan reinstalled and resealed. We have not added any oil back yet because we want the gasket maker to cure before we go and add that oil. So for right now, we're gonna wanna go and try and swap out our supercharger pulley. Before we go pulling that belt off, we're just gonna wanna get a good look at the routing here and save this in our memory banks. Looks simple enough. There's actually two belts. We're taking off the forward-most one that's on the supercharger pulley. We're not going to mess with that tensioner, which is for the water pump pulley right here. Oh, there we go. Look at that. There we go. I probably got like 10 different pulley puller tools lying around, but I went and spent another 60 bucks to get this one right here, which is made specifically for this car. Oh man, there it comes. All right, that was a good noise. It lets you pull the pulley off without having to remove the supercharger from the engine, which saves us a minimum 4 or 5 hours worth of work and is totally worth it. So here's the pulley that we're going to be replacing the factory one with, and you could tell it's just a few millimeters smaller. This is good for just a light bit amount of boost, more a conservative amount to keep things in a safe range here, especially for this car with 100,000 miles on it. And the good news is installing it should be a lot simpler than removing it. By heating up this pulley, we're actually expanding the center hole just enough to slide it right over the supercharger snout. It's like magic. It slides on perfectly if you get it hot enough, and then from there you're done. You just let it cool down before you put the belt back on, and it's that easy to up the boost in any supercharged Jag, and really a lot of other supercharged cars work the same exact way. Now before we go and tune the car, I want to talk about the tune and pulley cost because that's really what's going to eat into the rest of our budget, and I'm lucky to have good friends like Akram over at Supercharged in Dallas, Texas. A while back when he was here in Orlando, I had just mentioned to him on my old Jag, I said, hey, I want to do a tune and a pulley on this eventually. And one day he walked into the shop, he handed me this pulley and goes, hey, I got you a pulley for your Jag. I've had this thing since another project Jag ago, years ago. Huge thanks to you, Akram. I always kept track of that pulley because I knew one day we'd be doing another Jag project. And while it might seem like I'm cheating here, pulleys, they don't cost all that much. For this specific car, you can buy them sub 200 bucks. But to make the math easy, we're going to say that we spent 200 bucks on it. And well, that leaves us with about $300 left for the tune. Now, when it comes to the tune, here's how I did things on a real budget. I have this old tuning box here. I don't think this is something that any modern tuner would sell you, but for this car and for the purpose of just flashing a tune, it'll work perfectly. And it was actually mated to another car, but I was able to flash it back to factory. And my friend Alex over at Yorkshire DPF Center in England, well, of course, he's English, he knows everything about Jags, but he also tunes a lot of diesels, a lot of BMWs, and I asked him if he could whip me up some tunes for this XF, and he gave me a bunch from here. You could see he gave me some that will run on the stock pulley and basically bring it up to XFR levels of power, and then of course we've got the Stage 2, which we're going to flash right now. That is for our aftermarket pulley. It comes with some burbles, and he's removed the speed limiter on this, so this car will probably do darn near 200 miles an hour. Something we won't be testing today, but another huge thanks to Alex over at Yorkshire DPF Center. If you're across the pond, you got a Jag or you got a diesel, make sure you see Alex for any of your tuning needs. If you had to buy your own piece of tuning hardware, be prepared to spend somewhere between $200 and $400. Be prepared to spend another $200 to $400 on a few software tunes. We're going to go right in the middle with $300 for the tune, again $200 for the pulley, and that gives us a grand total of $4,980 for this Jag that's going to have well over 500 horsepower. Now all we got to do is fill this Jag up with oil and take it for a spin. immediately I could tell Alex in this tune has eliminated all that lag that the regular bass tune had in the throttle department. That was really my biggest complaint. To get this car going before, it felt quick, but you could tell they definitely detuned that throttle pedal in this trim compared to their more sporty models. This thing is such a sleeper. Listen to it. We're just sitting here in a turn lane, nice and quiet. Nothing to see, just an old Jaguar, probably owned by some 80-year-old lady. We go down to first gear and we go. This is the closest experience you can get to a Hellcat when it comes to any other car that's not a Hellcat or doesn't have a Hellcat engine. What, it costs like 1/10 that of a cheap Hellcat, and it makes the Hellcat noises. It's got that supercharger whine with a lot nicer interior than a Hellcat. Of course, 5 minutes into our first drive, it had to start raining and ruin all our fun. If you haven't already, drop me a comment. I want to hear from you guys. What other sorts of cars do you think you can eke out like 500 horsepower with a budget of only 5,000 bucks? I really don't think there are many out there, and that's what makes this car so special. And what I love about the Jaguar XF and this whole entire build is that it's replicatable. These cars, unfortunately, were never popular, and they have terrible resale value. And even though you might hop on Marketplace and look up a Jaguar XF Supercharged and find people selling ones with 100,000 miles for $13,000 and $15,000. The bottom line is they're not worth that. If you go to the JD Power website and just look at the 2011 model year, which has the same engine as this car, the average trade-in value is between $1,000 and $2,000. Unfortunately, the market is decided kind of by the wholesale market, and so while a private party car is still worth $4,000 or $5,000, they're not worth anywhere near what people are asking for them. Of course, when you buy one so cheap, you'll probably end up with it in some sort of disrepair, but as long as that engine is running, even if it's out of time a hair, you can fix it and you can make the Jaguar great again. As a matter of fact, if you want to spend a little bit more money, do you know that we can make this car 600 horsepower, under $6,000? You can actually add a lower crank pulley, and that'll give you another pound or two of boost, and right there with the tune, you're going to be right in the 600 horsepower neighborhood. Really, it's an amazing car that was completely overshadowed by its German competitors. And if you think about it, 10 years ago, someone said, here's $50,000. You can either go to the BMW or Audi dealer, or you can go to the Jaguar dealer. Where were you going to spend your money? You would never think to take a look at a Jag. But this car is better, in my opinion, than a 550i, or better than an Audi S6. I truly think that it is the best sports sedan of its era, and I hope that more people appreciate it, especially after watching this. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button. Also, make sure you're following along, because I've got to start tearing into that Supercharged V10 generator one of these days now, and there is a lot of work to be had there, but that's another potential super cheap, supercharged supercar. And well, this is sort of stuff that I live for, guys. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.